Welcome to the Cruise Retreat Podcast. Hi, I'm Rita Perez, and I'm a travel advisor specializing in, you guessed it, cruise ship retreats. This podcast is for service-based entrepreneurs and corporate decision makers to learn more about staying everyone's favorite company with a cruise ship retreat. Ready to increase your client or employee retention? Listen in on this week's show. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. So this week's focus is on the second C of cruise retreat planning, and that is calculate. And I wanted to get over probably the biggest misconception that I think a lot of people have when I do talk about switching your retreat or in-person experience to a cruise ship versus at a retreat center or on land at a hotel. And that really does have a lot to do with cost. And it is actually much cheaper for you to plan this on board a cruise ship versus in a hotel or a retreat center because your expenses are so much more reduced. So I want to break down that misconception that yes, planning a retreat is so much more it's cheaper, it's more cost effective, you get more bigger bang for your buck. I don't want you to associate that it being cheaper means that it is cheap, because it is certainly not a cheap experience, especially depending on the brands that you like to sail with. And one of my favorite brands is a luxury river cruise line. And I remember coming back and I had some podcast episodes where I just wanted to go up to every business owner that I know and be like, do you know how amazing this opportunity was? For me, as the person that was attending as a retreat attendee, and how explosive your business is going to be once you come back from that retreat, because your clients or your team members are going to be so transformed. And I do believe, I will stand by that, I think bigger transformations happen the further away that you go, meaning when I'm talking about really is these European river cruises, but that doesn't mean that transformations can't happen a little bit closer to home. And I think when we're thinking closer to home, this can be for small business owners bringing clients or community members on board an ocean vessel or a river cruise vessel, or the real transformational part is when you're able to get them out of the states, out of the country, exploring places maybe that they haven't been before, exploring them in a new way, and exploring them in a very intimate way. And that's really why I love the river cruise product. But again, let's go back down to what the costs are. So, and I have to think about this two ways, because there's different types of costs that you're going to have if you are a corporate leader or a team leader bringing your team on a retreat, or if you are a coach or some sort of facilitator and you're bringing clients on board. Because typically, if you're bringing your team on board, you are paying for your team to come there with you. You're taking care of all the expenses. This is usually some sort of incentive or team building or team planning strategy session. This can be your whole team. This can be just the executive team. It can vary. There's so many different factors that this can vary about. Whereas you're a small business owner and you're wanting to do transformations for your clients or your community members, you can bring pretty much anybody because you are not paying for them to go. This is something that your clients or community members have to opt into and say, yes, I want to go, make that investment. And then once they're invested, you are in charge of making sure that they have a fantastic experience on board. Clearly, not everything is on your shoulders, because you will have an amazing supplier to help you out. You will have an amazing support person and myself to help you out. But really, the programming is up to both the team leader and the business owner. So, and those are the biggest differences, that a team leader is going to pay for their people to go on board, whereas a small business owner they're not bringing their team, they're bringing clients on board, so the clients will be investing into that. So those are the biggest differences in those two types of retreat options. Then when you're looking at the actual retreat, A lot of the expenses that occur are because of the location that you have selected, which would be the cruise ship. And specifically, even going further down, it is the meeting space that you have on board. And while you're going to have to rent out a retreat center or rent out a hotel room space is complimentary with the cruise fare. So let's even break that down. So the cruise fare, what does that mean? What does that encompass? And I'm going to say cruise fare does include your taxes and your gratuities, because typically those are paid for by the team leader. Or if you are attending, or if your attendees are coming with you as like one of your business retreats, those are typical expenses that they would have included in their cruise fare instead of paying like line item by line item. So the cruise fare includes your cabin. It includes basic food and beverages, and this also depends on which cruise line that you're going on, which you can listen to the episode I did last week on the different types of cruise lines, because based on the different types of prices, based on the different cruise lines, there is different pricing, meaning that there are different inclusions at each of the different levels of cruise line that you're sailing with. So you have your cabin, you have your food and beverage, you have your activities on board, because, just being on a floating vessel, you need to be doing stuff instead of just existing there. You have even onboard entertainment. And I think pretty most importantly, what we don't remember too much often when we're thinking about cruises, you have the transportation. So you physically have a vessel that is transporting you to different areas around the world, wherever it is you select to go on. So those are kind of like the 5 big elements that are included in your cruise fare. Then when we're talking about retreats specifically, you have your meeting space, you have your food and beverage needs, you have your audio visual needs, and then you have your program needs. So what kind of like special things are you going to be doing, and what are the costs associated with the different events that you have in just the standard, what I'm saying, quote unquote, work process of your retreat. So meeting space, you don't have to worry about that because that's already included in the cost of your cruise fare. So can you see like where these differences are? So if you were a team leader, you would have to pay for the hotel rooms and the meeting space. You don't have to do that with a cruise. That's already included. Same thing if you are the business owner taking clients on board, you do have to pay for cabins. And just saying, there might be some incentives. Again, there's different incentives based on what is really important to you. That's a sidebar conversation that we can have if you're interested in doing a discovery call. But so you do have to pay for your cabin, but you don't have to pay for anybody else's cabin, being the business owner bringing clients. And you don't have to pay for any meeting space because the meeting space is already located on board. This doesn't mean you can use any space that you want. There are certain restrictions that happen. And again, that's why you use someone like myself, a travel advisor, who is well versed in the different meeting spaces that are available on board and who can coordinate those with you, because the ship runs on a schedule and you have to work with the ship's schedule. So it's not like a free-for-all that you can use whatever free space, but there are things that we can designate to reserve, quote unquote, to make sure that you have whatever meeting space is needed at the time that you're needing it. Thinking about, so food and beverage needs, that is a huge expense here at retreat centers and hotels. And that is a huge expense that you could say bye-bye to because it is included in the cruise fare already. What else? So we have audio visual needs. Now, and not saying, so food and beverage, it's a loaded question as well, because basic food and beverage is included, but you can also do special cocktail hours or special breakfasts, special dining options like specialty dining on board. There's that. So food and beverage is a big one to unpack, but for the basics, it is included within your cruise fare. Moving on to audio visual needs. So this is like your projector, your podium, your technicians, and for the most part, that is included as well. If you are being just super, super basic. There are some slight fees if you do need a little bit of setup. And of course, there'll be some fees to pay for the technicians if the technicians, you want them to be available for any music or sound or lighting. So that's a little bit of an iffy one in the sense that there might be some fees associated, but the fees are so much more fractional in comparison to the fees that you would be paying on land. Okay, so I talked about meeting space, food and beverage, audiovisual, and your special experiences. So, and this is like if you're going on a traditional ocean cruise, if you're comparing to a typical land, you have to pay for any entertainers to come on board. You're going to have to pay for any facilitators to come and facilitate any special activities, but that is included in the cruise fare. Now, there are certain things, again, I just want to mention, there are certain caveats to each of these buckets, but if we're making just a generalized rule, entertainment and activities are included with your cruise fare. So I would always put a star because, and I say generalized as far as basic, but if you want to go above and beyond, which is really why you're looking at cruise retreats as an option for your retreat planning purposes, you want to go above and beyond just general and basic and do something that's going to really knock the socks off out of your people. Like I know the event that I had attended this past summer, they included a photographer to create content, like photo content for us. And a spoiler alert, I will actually be attending something similar in December and even more photos. So I think if you are a business owner who focuses a lot on marketing and content, this is going to be so transformational for your people. And that's why I say there's different perks tailored to what you need, what your audience needs. And those are all things that, again, we can communicate off of here. But so if we're going to wrap this up in our general purposes, your meeting space is included. Your AV needs are mostly included. Your food and beverage is included. And those special little things that can really set you apart from a different retreat are included in the cruise fare. So really, apples and oranges. I know a lot of people will be like, well, the cruise fare is more money. Yes, the cruise fare is more money. But if you're looking at it with all the inclusions, you're saving thousands and sometimes tens of thousands especially since you don't have to pay for the meeting space, the AV, the food and beverage, etc. So if you're comparing solely on hotel room and solely on cabin fare, yes, the cabin fare is going to be more. But the cabin fare includes so much more, so there is less lining of items and expenses when you compare it to just the hotel room. I hope that really, really makes sense. I have done comparisons with a corporate retreat that I do annually and some meeting space here locally in the Orlando, Florida area, and they were saving at least $10,000 for their 100-person retreat by going on a cruise ship or having their event on a cruise ship, and not only being able to experience the retreat aspect, but there is that travel aspect, which I am that is one of my favorite things, and as a proponent of these cruise retreats, is that you are not able to just have the retreat experience, but you're literally able to transform them into a new destination. Take them to a new destination and all the experiences that comes with travel. I mean, I don't know anything that could be more transformational than really getting physically away from your current location and going to a whole different location. So let me know, what questions do you have? I hope that I have broken this misconception that cruise retreats, or even the idea that cruise retreats, are more expensive to you. Please communicate with me either on LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are the platforms that I'm most active on. I would love to hear questions, breaking this a little bit further down. And maybe in future episodes, I will break down each of those expenses even further down for you so that we can really get to the nitty-gritty. But this was a great overall misconceptions of the costs associated with putting your retreat on a cruise ship. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me on the Cruise Retreat podcast. Please subscribe and leave the show a rating on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to take a look at the show notes for important information and links. See you next week.